I want to next turn it over to another great candidate that we had the pleasure of working with, John Cooper. We got a couple of MBA guys with us today. So John has an MBA from New York University Business School. He spent over 20 years in varied and progressive financial analysis. So John, I'm sure you get an A+ on your due diligence if you're a financial analyst guy. So that speaks volumes about your investigation. He served with MedImmune, Time Warner, and Nextel. And not only did he spend time in the corporate world, we got a little in common here, John. He's also very entrepreneurial. He was an independent owner-operator of a chain of espresso bars and cafes that were located in medical buildings, and was very successful, growing his sales tenfold over a 6-year period. So without speaking for you, John, he, like myself, as an independent entrepreneur, decided to pursue the franchising walk to compress time and capital. So let me turn it over to John. He comes from, the quadrant C section, right? So you heard some brick and mortar examples. John's going to talk a little bit about a service business, real property management. Thanks, John. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Perfect.
Great. Similar to Rob, I left the corporate world for my happiness. I was just tired of the corporate world. I wanted to challenge myself and move forward. And in 2009, my wife and I started an espresso bar located in medical buildings. And after 11 years, we grew the business to close to $1 million in revenue and added multiple locations throughout the DC area. When COVID hit, my wife and I decided to just cash out. The business was slowing down, and COVID, it really adversely affected the business. We thought it was best just to close it out, cash out, and move to a lower cost of living. So we began to look at small businesses for sale. And during this process, I quickly learned that many of the companies were overpriced, and oftentimes the financials of these businesses were much worse than what was communicated to me. Sometimes the companies for sale were poorly run and needed to be turned around. So after several months of frustration, I received a call from Dave Jones, a franchise consultant. Dave explained the advantages of franchises. He was honest in his assessment that there are good franchises and there are bad franchises. Dave wanted to understand my goals for the franchise ownership and find the right fit for me. At first, I was pretty resistant to franchise ownership. I wanted to run my own business without the constraints of the franchise. But over time, I learned my assessment of the franchise business was wrong. Many franchises have proven business models and use best practices. In order to scale your business, it is critical to implement best practices. And I learned that through owning those espresso bars. I kind of capped out at $1 million. But if I had best practices, if I had the franchise to scale my business, I could have gotten it a lot bigger than just 1 million in revenue. And Dave was instrumental in opening up my mind to franchises that I originally did not consider. Through long conversations with Dave, he convinced me to open my mind, and his knowledge and experience as a successful entrepreneur really helped me. I couldn't have done it without him. And the franchise, I haven't opened my franchise yet. We're going to be opening in December. But what I can say is that the franchise itself, Real Property Management, has done quite well. They compete directly with mom and pops. And mom and pops usually, they're not web-based. They collect the checks. And with COVID, they do their processing through paper and through direct contact. Real Property Management is web-based, so they can collect checks through a web portal and deliver communication through a web portal, and they've actually grown their business during this period. So I'm excited to start my business and move forward in my career, and I'd like to thank Dave for doing a great job for me. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Hey, Mike, before I got to tell John's story. John called me one day, and we'd really worked together for a while, and said, Dave, I'm done. I'm not going forward. And I've decided that, thank you, but we're done. And I really stewed on it all night. It caught me off guard. And I finally called him back the next day and we talked through it. And he had pretty much been convinced that there was another property management franchise that he thought was better. And I said, before you make that decision, let's just compare. And he called me back the next day after spending a little time with Real Property Management and said, wow, thanks. So, John, thank you so much for your open mindedness. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Mike, I'll turn it back over to you.